I mean, off the bat, like even one of the
It's
things you figured out was the scaling laws,
it's so
right?
hard to remember what it was like. Next year will be our 10-year anniversary, and so not yeah, thank you. But to like remember what the vibes were like about AI 10 years ago, that was like way before the first language models that worked. We were trying to like play video games, and we had this little robotic hand that could sort of barely do a Rubik's Cube, and we had no ideas for products, no revenue, no really idea that we were ever going to have revenue. And we were like sitting around at conference tables and whiteboards trying to come up with ideas for papers to write. It was such, it's like hard to explain now because it looks so obvious now how improbable it seemed at the time, and how the idea of ChatGPT was like completely in the realm of science fiction.
I mean, one of the things that really jumped out at me was you sort of rallied this idea that you should be working on AGI, and then simultaneously you found the smartest people in the world who were working on that thing.
That second part was sort of easier than it sounds. If you say we're gonna like do this crazy thing, and it's exciting and it's important if it works, and other people aren't doing it, you can actually like get a lot of people together. And so we said, okay, we're gonna go for AGI. 99% of the world thought we were crazy. 1% of the world it really resonated with. Turned out there were a lot of smart people in that 1%, and you could get like there wasn't really anywhere else for them to go. So we were able to really concentrate the talent, and it was a mission that people cared about. So even though it seemed unlikely, if it worked, it seemed super valuable. And we've observed this many times with startups. If you are doing the same thing as everyone else, it is very hard to concentrate talent, and it's very hard to get people to like really believe in a mission. And if you're doing like a one of one thing, you have a really nice tailwind there.
Okay, so some people in this room might be thinking, like, should I try to start an OpenAI scale thing off the bat? Uh, you also worked on Loop your first time around. Were there lessons from that?
OpenAI was not an OpenAI scale thing off the bat. OpenAI was like 8 people in a room, and then it was 20 people in a room, and it was very unclear what to do, and we were just like trying to write a good research paper. Um, so the things that eventually become really big do not start off that way. I think it's important to like dream that it could be big if it works. Nothing big starts that way, and Vinod Khosla has this quote that I've always liked, which is there's a very big difference between a $0 million startup and a $0 billion startup, but they both have $0 of revenue. They're both like a few people sitting in a room, and they're both just trying to get the first thing to work. Um, so the only advice I have about trying to start something big is pick a market where it seems like there's some version of the future where it could be big if it works. But other than that, it's like one dumb foot in front of the other for a long time.
How people use ChatGPT has changed a lot. How people use your API has changed a lot. Uh, what surprises you the most with the latest models like O3, and what emergent behaviors or use cases are standing out to you right now?
I think we're in a really interesting time. We haven't been in one of these for a while, but like right now, we're in an interesting time where the product overhang relative to like what the models are capable of is here. The products that people have figured out to build is way down here. There's a huge, even if the models got no better, which of course they will, there's a huge amount of new stuff to build. And also, like last week, O3 cost 5 times as much as it did this week. And that's going to keep going. I think people will be astonished at how much the price per performance falls. We have an open source model coming out soon. I think people are going to be, yeah. I don't want to like steal the team's glory and pre-announce this, but I think you all will be astonished. I think it will be like much better than you're hoping for, and the ability to like use it to run incredibly powerful models locally is gonna like really, really surprise people on what's possible. But so you have this world where like the model capability has gone into like a kind of like a very new realm. The cost of the APIs are going to keep falling quite dramatically. The open source models are going to be super great. And I think we have not yet seen the level of new product innovation that the reasoning models are capable of, which makes sense. They're pretty new. But this is like an exceptional time to go build a company that takes advantage of this sort of new thing that exists, this sort of new square on a periodic table that no one has built with yet. So only in the last month, I think we really started to see startups that are saying, okay, like reasoning models are different. The whole interaction model is different and really building for that.
I mean, for me, even memory has turned into it feels like I'm talking to someone who knows me, which is interesting.
Yeah, memory is my favorite feature that we've launched this year. I don't think most people at OpenAI would say that because we've launched a lot of stuff, but I love memory in ChatGPT. And I think it points to where we will hopefully go with the product, which is you will have this like entity that gets to know you, that connects to all your stuff, and that is like proactively helping you. It won't just be like you send a message and it sends you one back, but it'll like be running all the time. It'll be looking at your stuff. It'll know when to send you a message. It'll know when to go do something on your behalf. You'll have, special new devices, and it'll be integrated on every other service you use, and you'll just have this thing running with you throughout your life. I think memory is the first time where people can sort of see that coming.
I, back in the day, you tweeted a little bit about her. When is that coming? Can you give us an alpha leak around that?
I think gradually is the answer. No, if I had a date in mind, I would probably just be excited and tell you. Um, but like, it's a little bit here with memory.
Right.
It'll be a little more here when it's persistently running in the background and sending you stuff. It'll be a lot more here when we ship the first new device. But I think the key of her is not the little piece of hardware. It's that this thing got to a point where it could run in the background and feel like a sort of AI companion.
I guess we're starting to see the power of LLMs with integrations into your real data. Uh, you know, I've heard rumors that MCP is coming to OpenAI.
I think today.
Yeah. Oh,
I
today.
think so.
Fantastic. What has been surprising about the actual integrations? Like, have you been seeing people actually operating on their core database? At YC, we actually have that agent infrastructure internally, and we use it all the time.
Definitely people are starting to use ChatGPT as this like operating system with everything, with their whole lives in it. And integrating into as many data sources as possible is important. Devices that are always with you, like new kinds of web browsers, the connection to all data sources, memory, and then a model that's persistently running. You put all that together, I think you get to like a pretty powerful place.
Do you think that'll be in the cloud in the future, or will it be on our desktop, or some mix of both?
Some mix of all of that. Definitely people will run local models for some things. Like, man, if we could push like half the ChatGPT workload onto your local devices, no one would be happier than us. Like our cloud, I think we will run the like largest and most expensive piece of infrastructure in the world pretty soon. So if we could push some of that off, that'd be great. But a lot of it will run on the cloud.
Is it surprising to you how hard it is to get compute?
I mean, we've gotten really good at it,
Yeah.
but it is. We went from like a zero, like no ChatGPT.com didn't exist 2.5 years ago to like the fifth biggest website in the world. It'll be the third at some point, hopefully someday the first if our current growth rates continue. And I think doing that is just hard no matter what. Like you usually get longer than we've gotten to scale up a like infrastructure for a new company. But there's like a lot of people that want to help.
Well, it's incredible, incredible work that you guys have been doing. We're seeing reasoning models like O3 and O4 Mini evolve in parallel with multimodal models like 4.0. What happens when these two threads converge, and what's the vision for GPT-5 and beyond?
I mean, we won't get all the way here with GPT-5, but eventually we do want one integrated model that can like reason really hard when it needs to and generate like real-time video when it needs to do that. If you ask a question, you could imagine it thinking super hard, doing some research, writing a bunch of code just in time for like a brand new app only for you to use, or kind of like rendering live video that you can interact with. So I think that will feel like a real new kind of computer interface. The AI sort of somewhat already does, but when we get to a model that has like true complete multimodality, like perfect video, perfect coding, everything, and deep reasoning, that will feel like quite powerful.
It seems like that might be a hop step over to the embodied aspect. That's having vision, having speech, and having reasoning is a hop step to, you know,
Yeah.
basically the robot we want.
Our strategy has been nail that first, and then make sure we can connect that to a robot. But the time for the robot is coming soon. I think I am very excited about a world where when you sign up for like the highest tier of the ChatGPT subscription, we send you a free humanoid robot too.
I mean, that future is going to be pretty wild. Being able to have robots that do real work in the real world.
I think we're not that far away now. Uh, the mechanical engineering of robots has been quite difficult. And the sort of AI for the cognitive part has been quite difficult too, but it feels within grasp. And I think in a few years, robots will start to do super useful stuff. Making a billion robots is still going to take a while, but I don't know. I'm interested in the question of how many robots do you need to fully automate the supply chain? Like if you make a million humanoid robots the old-fashioned way, can they run the entire supply chain? Drive the mining equipment, like drive the container ships, run the, foundries and make the new robots. And then maybe like you actually can get a lot of robots in the world quickly, but the demand for humanoid robots in the world will be far more than we know how to think about with the current supply chain.
I guess when you were sitting in my seat, one of the things you led was a lot more investment into hard tech at YC. Um, Sitting here where we are geopolitically, what do we need to do to make sure that America can actually have manufacturing and industrial capacity? We can't even build precision screws and large sheet metal without crazy cost overruns. What can we do to make sure that happens here?
There are all of these answers that people throw around and have thrown around the same things for a while, and it clearly hasn't worked. So I think all of the policy is worth trying, but my instinct is we need to try something new. We shouldn't keep trying the same failed stuff. And, like AI and robotics does give us a new possibility of a way to bring manufacturing back here and to bring sort of these complex industries here in a really important new way. And I would say that's at least worth trying.
Yeah. Um, what does defensibility look like here? One of the classic questions is, how do I start a startup that doesn't get run over by OpenAI? That's sort of the number one question that's in our chat.
We don't want to run you over. Look, we're going to do our thing hopefully very well. We are going to try to make the best super assistant out of ChatGPT that we can. We're going to add the things that we think we need to add to that. But that is like one small part of the opportunity in front of us. And it makes us sad when people are like, I'm going to start a new startup and I'm going to like make a version of ChatGPT. Because we think we're going to do that pretty well. And we have like, kind of a big head start. But there is so much more space to go after. And there are so many incredible other companies that have been built using our platform. We would like to make it easier for you all. We would like to do more things. Like finally now, you can imagine that ChatGPT could drive a lot of traffic to new startups, and that there's like a new kind of app or agent or whatever you want to call it, store that we could do inside of ChatGPT and drive traffic to new startups to help. You could imagine that we could do like a sign in with OpenAI and people could bring their personalized model and easily connect it to a new startup, and that would probably help in a bunch of ways. So we want to be a platform for other people to build stuff. Our advice is like, don't build our core, chat assistant. But there is another problem, which is, and this is the same for every kind of like moment that I've seen in startup history. People get excited about the same thing at the same time. And so rather than go build the thing that you have thought of that is not everybody what else is doing, we are like very social creatures and we get very influenced by what other people are doing. And I bet if Gary listed off the 5 ideas that he hears most often of what people want to build with AI, like half the room would raise their hands for working on one of those 5. And there is hopefully in this room the person who's going to start a company that is like much bigger than OpenAI someday. And I would bet that person is not working on any of the 5. So it is hard to build something defensible if everybody else is trying to do the same thing. Sometimes it works, it's not impossible. But the best, the most enduring companies are usually not doing the same thing as everybody else. And that gives you time to figure out what the great product is, how to build the technology before you have to answer the defensibility question. It took us a long time to figure out how to answer the defensibility question for ChatGPT. We had built this thing, and for a long time, the only defensibility was like, we had the only product out in the market. And then we kind of like be a brand that started to be well known. And now we have things like memory and connections and a whole bunch of other stuff that really is defensible. But, that was like a fair criticism of us for a long time. we didn't have any defensibility strategy. We just like had the only good thing out there, and then you have some window before which you have to build defensibility.
One of the things we've talked about in the past is that we both are big followers of Peter Thiel, in that he talks a lot about being contrarian but right. Um, I think that you've
Peter's a genius.
absolutely, and you've been contrarian in really fundamental ways. I mean, going back, to the beginning of the conversation, people thought, oh, this idea that the scaling laws are valuable. Today, it's taken as basic truth, but it was exactly the opposite of ground truth not that many years ago. When you got that pushback, what did you and your team feel? Did you say, you know, F you, I won't do what you tell me. I'm going to push back against, getting pushback means that this is a contrarian area and we're going to bet here and we're going to be right.
It is hard to have conviction in the face of a lot of other people telling you you're wrong. And I think people who say it's easy are not being honest. It gets easier over time. But like I remember one time, I can say this one because it got publicized, in not early, a few years into OpenAI, where Elon sent us this really mean email. We'd been working together for a while and said we had a 0% chance of success. Like not 0.10, that we were totally failing. We had showed him like GPT-1 recently. He was like, this is crap. It's not going to work. Doesn't make sense. And he was really a hero of mine at the time. And I remember going home that night and being like, what if he's right? Like, this fucking sucks. You're working so hard on this thing. Like, you're pouring your life force into it. And you have these people who are smart and that you look up to, and they say, you are totally wrong. Or, this is just never going to work, or you don't have defensibility. Someone's going to kill you. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And I don't have a magic answer other than it's really tough and it gets significantly easier over time. But it's going to happen to all of you. And you just like get knocked down and get back up and brush yourself off and try to keep going.
Let's talk AI agents. That's sort of the level 3 AGI. This is the year, I think Greg Brockman talked about recently, this is the year of the agent. Um, with tools like Operator, Code Interpreter, what kind of workflows do you think will disappear or appear that we just aren't ready for yet?
For a long time, ChatGPT was like a Google replacement. You could ask it something that was about as long as a Google query, maybe like half an hour worth of Google queries it could assemble together. And that was still pretty good, but it still felt like a more advanced version of search. But now you start to see things where you can like really give a task to Codex, for example, or to Deep Research, and you have this thing go off and do a bunch of stuff and come back to you with like a proposal. It's like a very junior employee that can work on something for like a short period of time. And if you think about how much of the work that the world does is work that can be done in front of a computer in like few hour chunks where you then have someone say like, okay, that was good enough or not, it's quite a lot. So I think this is going to go, this is part of that overhang we were talking about earlier, but I think this is going to go quite far. And I think with current O3, to say nothing of our next model, you can build a lot of experiences like this.
How do you see the future of human computer interaction and interfaces? And what are sort of the limitations of those interfaces that, motivated you?
One of the things that I think sci-fi got right is the idea of the interface almost melts away. Like voice interfaces today, we think of as something that is kind of sucky because they don't work that well. But in theory, if you could say to a computer, this is exactly what I want to happen today,